Hello and welcome to the Inside the Birds post-game show. I'm Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan. The Eagles came home on Monday night. It's their first true home game in front of the rabid fan base, Adam, and proceeded to look like they were going to snatch a victory out of the jaws of defeat, only to actually give the defeat to the Atlanta Falcons. They lose 22-21. Adam, this game is filled with a lot of things that are going to make the fans seethe. Bad execution, questionable play calling, a turnover at the end of the game. But really, honestly, you can dissect it any way you want with any one individual play. Win or loss, this game did not just – obviously the Eagles without A.J. Brown. Win or loss, big picture, this is not the Eagles team that people expected.
No, look, we know it was going to be tough without A.J. Brown. It was tough for them to do the football. It was very choppy offensively. I give them the credit for fighting back and finding a way to move the football. Gaffes, 9 penalties. They lost easily over 50 yards of offense. Covey lost a couple catches. Illegal man downfield. Like we've seen this before with the offensive line. It's got to get corrected. They got to do a better job. They got to know the rule. The Barkley drop, obviously the pick at the end of the game was awful. You got to know the situation. Can't throw a pick there. They only need about 15 yards or less for LA to try a field goal. It's just probably only 10, to be honest with you, based on how strong his leg is. So everybody deserves it. It's on everybody. This is not one side of the football. It's clearly both. Both could raise their hand and say, yeah, I could have done better. So yeah, a lot of gaffes. Situationally, I think they made a couple mistakes, but overall, they were this one. They earned it. There's no question they deserved to lose, and completely the way they collapsed on defense.
I'm already seeing, and so are you, in our comments here on this stream that we're doing, and on Twitter. Fire Sirianni. Play calling was terrible. I think you and I always see this the same way. Yes, you can blame coaches to an extent, but execution to me is more important. As long as a player is in position to succeed by the coaches. Saquon Barkley, you can say, "Oh, why didn't you run there?" Then you set up a 4th and short if you don't get it. You can go for it there. You can kick the field goal. But if that play is caught, if that ball is caught by Saquon Barkley, you know what everybody's saying? Caught the Falcons off guard and really put your foot on the jugular there, and you got him. You got him with an aggressive play call. People like that. That is on Saquon Barkley not catching that ball. It was well placed. There's no excuse for it. And then when you look on the other side, Adam, even though Atlanta had a lot more time with the ball left than maybe we thought they would have, zero pressure, zero coverage. They didn't get pressure all that game. They didn't get pressure last game. You could blame Vic Fangio for any kind of coverage concepts or this or that. This is execution. And right now, this doesn't look like a very, very good this doesn't look like a Super Bowl contender Eagles team, even going back to the opener.
Look, you can make you can make the playoffs easily by not being a good run defense. The Colts did it. Remember Bill Polian telling us years ago what happened. They made some adjustments late in the season, very small, and they were able to make a Super Bowl run and win it. But man, this run defense it's not good. It's not acceptable. Got to be better. Once again, you have to ask yourself, where's Jordan Davis, number 90? You saw Thomas Booker playing. Mm-hmm. He might be playing a bigger role going forward. Not the biggest guy in the world, but hey, these coaches clearly trust him. But the guys are getting paid a lot of money. The high picks. These guys have to be factors. And since you brought up the defense and the lack of pass rush, Bryce Huff, number 0, he's got to be a factor.
Exactly, 0.
It's embarrassing. Yeah, it's just embarrassing. I know it's 2 games, but $17 million a year, fully guaranteed first 2 years. They can't get out of the contract here for the season. No one's taking his contract.
Right.
He's got to get this. He's just got to get it. They got to figure this out. They have a 0 pass rush. I mean, Milton Williams had he went right through the offensive lineman. That was about it. And it's a disaster, man. It's really a disaster. You have to ask yourself about their defense. What do they do really well? I mean, pretty not bad coverage. Obviously, the final drive is horrendous coverage-wise.
Oh, terrible.
Right, terrible. Soft defense. It's like, Vic, you got to do a better job. Okay, you got to figure this out. Because the defense did a pretty good job against Cousins. I know Cousins and moving real well. He's moving better than he did last game, but he didn't move well. And the ball did not come out with a lot of steam until the last drive. And even when it did, quite frankly, it just got there. It just got there, but they couldn't get to him. And that's the problem. You couldn't get to slow Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, to answer your question, the one thing the Eagles seem to do very well right now on defense is just low red zone defense, which is really it's an important thing. It won them the game against Green Bay, and it would have won them this game against the Falcons had they figured out a way to finish it off there. But you can't just be good at low red zone defense, hang your hat on that, and say it's okay if I'm really loose between the 20s and I can't cover anybody. I do think I'm a big patience guy. You have to give a team a chance to grow. 2 different coordinators. You're missing A.J. Brown. Your defense is finding itself. I don't expect this run defense or this coverage to continue along this path all year long. I expect that Vic Fangio will get through. There might be personnel changes. Offensively, I have a little bit more concern only in the near future here, Adam, for 2 reasons. All right. One, they're about to play New Orleans and Tampa Bay, 2 good defenses, right? New Orleans is hot offensively here without A.J. Brown. And so for a big pick, like zeroing in here on the first quarter of the schedule, that's going to be difficult. And 2, Jalen Hurts tonight took way too many hits. He was a extra running back tonight. The passing game was okay. Wasn't great. Nothing downfield. They obviously miss A.J. Brown. Yep. We said that if the measure of a true quarterback and offensive coordinator is, can you move the chains without your best player? Did they move the chains? Yes. Did they do it in a way that's sustainable? No, not if Jalen Hurts is going to take 15, 16 hits because he runs that much. He took some vicious hits at the end of the tackle tonight, Adam. And we know he's suffered an injury each of the last 3 years that has hurt him.
All right, 2 things. Hurts has to get rid of the football. When we talk to Greg Cosell tomorrow night for Patreon, if they don't ask him, or if our people don't ask him, I'm going to ask Greg. My first question will be, it's real simple. Was Hurts holding to the ball too long? Because the line protection was fantastic.
Yes.
The line is about as good as it's going to get. They give him so much time to throw. Where the pass target's not getting open. What were the route combinations looking like? Did he like the structure? Did Greg like the structure? I can't wait to talk to him about that, because this can't go on. You got to scheme guys open. And if they were getting open, Jalen wasn't throwing it like last season, where he's holding the ball too long, it was totally indecisive and dropping his eyes like last year, then they have a problem. So one way or the other, it's one or the other, folks. It's either Hurts didn't get rid of the football, it's on him, or Kellen Moore couldn't scheme him open. It's one or the other. He doesn't just go back there and decide he's not going to throw the football unless he doesn't understand what he's saying, or the guys aren't getting open, and that's unacceptable. Like this is what you and I talked about before. We talked about with Greg as well on a pregame show, is that you're not always going to have every player available to you. Yes, it's harder without AJ Brown. Obviously, Hurts threw for under 200 yards. That's not good. And the lack of Dallas Goedert's embarrassing. I don't want to hear about how great their safeties are. So what? What you can't scheme guys? Get Dallas Goedert open, okay? He doesn't do anything until late in the game. He made some critical catches, but it's your job to get this guy open. Line him up the X position. We'll ask Greg tomorrow night on our live stream, whether he was scheming this guy open. Was he moving him around? Was he keeping him in the block? I don't know. But that's just Britton Covey, nice story, but he averaged less than 4 yards per catch on his 6 catches.
Yeah, that was like I think it was Troy Aikman who said he was having the game of his life, right? Because he got like 7 or 8 targets, but that was a attempted running game that wasn't Saquon Barkley. It was just a lot of swing passes left and right, trying to pop them on screens and quick hitches to get 3 or 4 yards, set up like a more manageable 2nd and 3rd down. But the Falcons, we talked about their defense in the pregame show. You did a great job of explaining that they have 2 of the most tall, physically imposing safeties in the NFL. And those guys really did a good job. And they made a great adjustment against the run in the first quarter. What I really look forward to seeing is watching the tape, talking to Greg. I don't think that that's an accident. I think they started doing something schematically up front. They didn't play more guys in the box. I think maybe they started slanting in the direction that they expected the run to be able to close those lanes that Saquon had in the first quarter. Because clearly after the first quarter, Saquon had some nice runs, but it was looking like Saquon and Bijan were going to be like, who's the first to 200 yards rushing, right? And it wasn't like that for the rest of the
They both got close. But one other thing I would add, and this is on the point without A.J. Brown, Smitty is phenomenal, obviously, but he's about $165 soaking wet. Okay. Covey is 5'8", 5'9". Dotson is what, 5'10" plus. I don't think he's 6 feet. Okay. And one of the reasons, as we reported at the time, that Washington wanted him off the roster is because he wasn't physical enough. He's nothing. This new front office and coaching staff with Washington felt like he couldn't get open on his own, wasn't physical enough, didn't play through contact like he did at Penn State. I'm just telling you, this is what we were told. Mm-hmm. And Johnny Wilson's useless unless you're blocking. He can't get open on his own. So on your point you made 2 or 3 months ago, turned out to be true early in the first quarter. The only guy that could get open was Grant Calcaterra. He had the 2 catches early, and then I guess he was blocking. But it's just not good, man. They got issues. Okay, they got issues. And then AJ Brown told Lisa Salters, by the way, from Philly, that it's going to be a couple weeks for his hamstring issue.
Yeah, so this is now a couple of weeks, and this is going to be problematic because you're going on the road, loud environment. Again, the Saints have always had a good defense. Their offense has been a problem, but this year their offense is explosive. And we know week 4, Todd Bowles, that guy just licks his chops to get at the Eagles, especially, right? This will be the second straight game, if they don't have AJ by then, that Todd Bowles will be going up against the Eagles offense without AJ Brown. So really a lot to go back to the drawing board with for the Eagles offensively, clearly defensively. Let's get into micro dissecting the offense a little bit. There were some again, I put everything on execution 80% of the time, 90% of the time, but there were some questionable calls. Adam, in the third quarter, the Eagles have the ball, and on 3rd and 3, low red zone for Atlanta, they throw it to Devontae Smith. It was a beautiful throw. I thought it was a good throw, good route, but an even better play by, was it Justin Simmons who hit Devontae Smith? I'm trying to remember now who hit him to break up that tackle. I think it was Bates, right? Okay. Who just leveled him and caused him to drop it. And, 3rd and 3 there, you're approaching, you got 2 opportunities to either, pick up first down before you get a touchdown, right? And you decide to throw it on 3rd down, incomplete, then you have to kick the field goal there. I think it's fair to say the way you were running the ball, the way your quarterback was running the ball at times, that it just feels like when the Eagles are doing standard operating procedure, when they want to move the chains and they have short yardage, they're going to usually run to set up the run, right? Run to set up the tush push, not pass in that situation. So I thought that was a fairly curious play call. And then of course, trying to go for it with Saquon Barkley. Again, I didn't have an issue with it. Wanted to get your thought on it, though.
No, I had no issue with it. And by the way, Barkley's got to catch the football. And my goodness gracious, that's just you come on, man. This can't happen. He had a bunch of beautiful runs. Oh, there was one run, and it's so funny because he's wearing the same number as his former teammate in college, Miles Sanders, wore 26 here. Mm-hmm. So the big play where he lowered his shoulder, knocked the guy down. Miles never did that. I just thought of that as soon as I saw him. Like, Sanders wouldn't do that. But look, they got stuff to clean up. We get it offensively. AJ Brown makes a major difference. Not like we didn't know this when they played Tampa Bay. That was embarrassing when they got smoked in Tampa in the playoffs. This is tough. I mean, they mustered points. They mustered 21. They were able to get that done, but they got to be more explosive on offense. And you mentioned New Orleans. Here's one thing you need to know, folks. They're going to face the same scheme they face this one. Zach Robinson's running Shanahan/McVay. You're going to get a lot of wide zone. Bijan Robinson killed him in a bunch of runs. I'm shocked they didn't have like 150. In fact, it's a funny thing is they had 150. When did I text you? In the second quarter?
Yeah.
They had 100. They had exactly 150. So I don't know what happened after that, other than they got behind, they threw it. Mm-hmm. But they got problems. And boy, people thought Alvin Kamara is done. He ain't done. Holy smokes, he is not done.
Not done. No, he's been like reborn in that Clint Kubiak offense. All right. So another questionable call offensively. And again, I think your play calls are about your personnel and about what you have and what you don't have. And I don't expect every single carry to go to Saquon Barkley because he needs a breather. But at the same time, you have to have your best personnel in at times when you need to punch it in and get a red zone. We talk about Kenny Gainwell being their changeup back, or sometimes he's their goal or red zone back, or their 2-minute, 4-minute drill back. If you remember the Eagles' second drive I mean, it was amazing how well they moved the ball. It was Barkley for 9, then Dotson for 6 on a screen, then Barkley for 9 more, then Calcaterra for 10, Barkley for 9, Barkley for 11. You notice the trend here? They get all the way inside Atlanta zone. Then what happens? You give Kenny Gainwell 2 runs, and the next thing you know, you're looking at 3rd and 4. I don't know if you caught this, but on 3rd and 4, Barkley ran onto the field, and they gave him a standing ovation because Kenny Gainwell was coming off. It just, to me, that was a little – I know, I get it. When a guy has like all that, he needs a breather. But you're Saquon Barkley, you're paid a lot. Give him a breather later in the game. You're in a role. I thought that was a bad time to start subbing out running backs.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Robinson had this incredible drive, then they put Algier in to finish it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow. Well, man, Bijan, I mean, if I'm coaching Bijan, I don't want him off the field. The Eagles simply couldn't stop him. And then they put Algier in. But, yeah, look, I think it's on your point about we have no idea from a conditioning standpoint. Okay, Barkley got a lot of work on that drive. Was he huffing and puffing? Did he need a breather? Did he ask out? We don't know. I mean, that's something I'd like to know. But look, I know people are jumping off bridges already. People are pissed off. I'm looking at the chat. People are super. I get it. We're waiting for the proverbial. Okay, when's Laurie going to sell the team? When are they going to hire a new GM? When are they going to hire a new Sirianni needs to be fired now? Nothing changes for decades. But calm down. It's a long season. By the way, there are only 4 teams in the NFC undefeated. It's just ridiculous. Talk about competitive balance, my God. Only 4 after 2 weeks.
Well, that's what the league wants. The NFL wants parity. It's certainly getting parity. Eagles fans don't want parity. They wanted the Eagles to come home and have a convincing win over the Falcons. Anything else offensively? I thought, I really paid close attention to this, wrote it down in my notes, something that is minor, but will have to be cleaned up because even though it only happened, I think 2 or 3 times, it always happens on 3rd down. It's very important. The right side of the Eagles offensive line with Mekhi Becton and Lane Johnson did not pick up a line game, like a stunt or a twist on 3 different occasions and twice it forced Jalen Hurts to run and throw it out of bounds. Like he was flushed immediately. Another time Jalen Hurts made an unbelievable play. But that is stuff that's got to get cleaned up. And it doesn't surprise me with Mekhi Becton, and I'm not blaming him. I don't know. We have to know the protections. We have to know everything. But for a guy playing guard the first time, it's not surprising me that opponents are trying to twist and stunt in front of him because that takes communication. It takes understanding when to pass off the looper and take on the stunter. And, you need reps with that. It's very difficult. But, again, those are the 2 or 3 times in a game that can really make a difference. And they did in this game. I mean, they 2 third downs that the Eagles had to give up the ball because they couldn't make anything. The quarterback couldn't make anything happen and it was just a 4-man rush. You can't have a guy coming at you on a 4-man rush because your right side of the line didn't pick up the stunt.
But overall, their line did a pretty good job.
Overall, yes.
Over they plenty of plays where Hurts has got to make the play or someone's got it. Whatever. Again, we're going to find out when we talk to Greg tomorrow night. For those of you who are watching who are Patreon members, can't wait because Greg, that'll be the first thing when he gets into like 4:30. I'm sure that'll be the first game of the 20 he watches tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But look, there are other things like Jahan Dotson. He has to be a factor. Like they need him so badly to be a factor. I know they're new to him. It's really hard in season. He's got to learn a new scheme. Not easy. And it's not really a West Coast scheme. It's a blending of a couple. He's got to learn the terminology really quickly. He's got to get used to these coaches and so forth. So they got to figure it out with him. They need to be a factor because there's nowhere else to turn right now. This is all that they have. Mm-hmm. Paris Campbell was active for the game, but if he played, I didn't see him. I mean, he technically came in, but I didn't see him. Right. So I don't know if he has anything left. They got problems. I mean, they're it's interesting is, by the way, New Orleans, Marshawn Lattimore didn't play. He's got a hamstring problem again. He didn't even play against Dallas, and look what New Orleans did. Right. Well, they've got some good corner. Adebo's a good corner. Yeah. I can't remember the other guy's name. He's pretty good. They've got obviously Tyrann Mathieu. I watched a little of the New Orleans Dallas game. He put some hits out there. He's still a decent enough player. You're right, Dotson. Now, to your point on Dotson, right? What is John DeFilippo's favorite saying about your number 3 receiver? Oh, what did Troy Aikman tell him? I forget. What was it? You're only as good as your number 3 receiver. And right now with A.J. Brown out, who is that? Number 1 is Devontae. Number 2 is Dallas. Number 3.
I mean, tonight was Covey, but that's not going to be. And let's again, Covey didn't get open. I mean, he
lost 2 catches. By the way, he lost 2 catches due to penalty. But go ahead.
Yeah, he just caught a bunch of screens though, swings. It's not like he did something to really force a defense, right? You're only as good as your third. It's supposed to be Jahan Dotson. He's still learning the offense. I can cut him some slack for that. But eventually, by week 3, you got to be more productive. You got to have a couple catches, not just a screen. You got to be able to like literally get yourself open, not just be schemed open and make a play.
Right. And but he seemed to be the motion player. Speaking of the motion player, you notice that Will Shipley, I'm other than kickoff returns, I understand like I believe all 4, at least 3 of them, if not all 4 plays that he was in against Green Bay were motioned. He was motioned.
Yeah.
So okay, so just change it up. But the guy's explosive. You don't have AJ Brown. You need to figure out another way to move the football and help you. Kellen Moore's got to use the kid. I'm not saying 20 plays, but you got to go into your bag of tricks and then find something else. Like you can't just throw your hands up. You got to figure it out. It's no, I say that even if they would have won the game, we just outlined and the fans know they watch the Eagles have some issues, but it is a long season and they will get it's a hamstring injury. It's not a sprained knee. He'll be back. Right. But what I find interesting is it tightened up. Usually when it tightens up, it's a spasm or it's day to day. I mean, that's you worry about it. Obviously, it's a strain. You worry about what degree of strain that is. So that's a little concerning with AJ Brown.
100%. Let's see. I want to move on to defense.
Yes.
I want to ask you because there's a little voice in my head. I talk to you way too much, man. We talk every single day. We podcast it. We do it. There's a voice in my head as Bijan Robinson and Algier are tearing up the Eagles defense, right? And you're right about this. We talk to Coach about all the time. Coaches don't really get upset about giving up a lot of big plays in the run game, as long as they stop them at the 20s in the red zone, which the Eagles have they did, right? They're getting gashed left and right, but at halftime they're sitting there and they're saying, well, it's 7-6. So we've done our job. We've only given up that many points, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So I was gonna say but some of that was unacceptable. Like, right now they can't stop a single decent run, and that has to be cleaned up.
Yeah, and look, Younghoe Koo, the kicker, like all of a sudden he becomes the man of the game to keep the team in it.
Yeah.
But look, Jordan Davis has got to be a factor. Like this is just not. We're going to look more into the thing that we've talked about how he gets stood up. Everybody knows that. I want to know about from a technique standpoint. I remember Mike Zimmer telling me this when he would coach defensive linemen within a scheme. Man, can you kill that thing?
Trying.
Okay, so okay, I got you. What Mike said was, you don't get on the field if you don't have proper technique. At some point, if Jordan Davis, I know they won't because of what they gave up to get him, in the draft. I'm sure they won't bench him, but maybe Thomas Booker starts playing over him. I don't know. I at this point look, it's year 3 now. I know people already call him a bust. If you go ahead, he's headed towards that, folks. This is not acceptable. You don't trade up for a guy just to be a run stopper. I'm sorry.
No, that's fair.
And he's not even good. He's not even good. He's not even consistent in that area. That's the problem.
I agree. I mean, I don't want to put the entire, run defense is about at least your front 6, not just one, but that's his main job. And you can run up the middle on the Eagles. You can run around the edges on the Eagles. So clearly the edge setters aren't doing their jobs as well. I thought linebacker were not getting off blocks. I mean, do I expect some of this to be correct? I specifically remember, Adam, this being an issue for the Eagles the year when Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon took over their first few games. They had a real issue with run fits. Some of it was personnel based. They were playing Eric Wilson and Anthony Harris at safety. They just didn't have good run defenders. They didn't have anybody like a Jordan Davis either, right? Like Jannard Avery was the extra guy on the line of scrimmage. So they had personnel issues, but they also had run fit issues. Fletcher Cox wasn't happy at that time about his alignment, and they were getting gashed. I think you're seeing the same thing. Guys just adjusting. Greg Cosell talked about playing gap and a half football under Vic Fangio that might be different than what Sean Desai was asking them to do, or Patricia So I can see that rounding into form. It may take a little time, and it may not be by next week against the Saints, and that might be unfortunate, but it's a long season. Coverage and the marriage between coverage and pressure, though, I don't know, man. Because where is the savior in it? Because everybody was getting beat. You saw one nice play from Quinyon Mitchell on a ball that was really should have been thrown to the outside, was thrown to the inside 2 weeks in a row. But other than that, Cooper not yet ready to get in there. To me, that would be the bigger concern, right? Because like we say, you can give up runs you can give up rushing yards as long as you're tight in the red zone. You cannot get the ball just thrown all over you like they did, especially on the final drive.
But two things. You never accept that you're not good against the run. No coach will ever say, "Oh, it's okay." Right. We're right. But on your point, they will tell you they're coaches, typically defensive coaches we've talked to for decades. They typically are not like it's a concern, but they're not going to go crazy over it. It's when you can't get pressure on a quarterback, you have problems.
Mm-hmm.
And they have nobody can get to the passer. Period. End of story. Nobody can. Huff, Sweat, they can't get to the passer. BG's doing the best that he can. They sent Dean on some blitzes. But we should mention Max was the nickel. Rodgers was active, did not play, which is kind of what we expected. We'll see going forward if they give up a little bit of some of that role to Matt or just get Maddox off the field. Use Mitchell a little bit, but Maddox seemed to hold his own. He had that really good play in the end zone. He did not interfere. I thought that was. I mean, I watched that play I know the role pretty well. He got his arm around him, but he didn't hook him.
Right. I don't disagree with that. I thought that was a decent play. I have to go back. We have to go back and watch because I have a feeling when we do, the guy who killed the Eagles tonight was not Drake London and was not Kyle Pitts. It was freaking Ray McLeod.
Oh, I can't believe he's their leading receiver this season. Can you believe that?
Yeah. Well, I can after that game. But he's mostly an interior slot number 3. I have a feeling that Avonte Maddox might. I know Nakobe Dean got by him a couple of times, but I have a feeling Maddox might have had his hands in
maybe.
That.
I mean,
we'll have to go watch tape.
Yeah, he only had 3 catches, but they were kind of important.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of a weird deal, man. This team, it's kind of this. It's only week 2. You don't want to go crazy, but because of the way the Eagles lost, obviously it's heartbreaking if you're an Eagles fan. I get it. Totally feel you, man. It's not good, but they're on a short week, so they understand like this is not going to be easy. They have to go to New Orleans. In fact, the next 2 games are away. They've 2 more to have 3 straight against NFC South teams, which that odd scheduling quirk.
Mm-hmm.
But it's look, the Saints. We'll find out how real they are. They've been incredible first 2 games. We'll have more on them on our Wednesday morning show, and everything we're doing this week would be Saints focused for that matchup, and we'll find out what the tape looked like. So we're about education to find out what really happened. But man, the biggest issue for this defense, and it's not going to change, is their pass rush. It's what we saw in training camp. It was pathetic in training camp. It's even worse than I thought. I'll be honest. I can't believe it's this bad. That's the amazing thing is like the game was as close as it was until obviously the last drive was pathetic. Right. They might as well play with 5 players on the field. Wouldn't have mattered. They could play 20 guys on the field, 5. It was a joke. I mean, it was pitch. Was it not pitch and catch?
If I've never seen an easier final drive of a game where a team is on the road in a hostile environment under intense pressure and with the prospect of going to 0-2 to start the season with their expectations, how easily they went down the field. Like, think about this. The Eagles only rushed 4 on, I think 3 at one point. So you're dropping 7 or 8 guys. How in the world are receivers that open when you're dropping that many guys?
Yeah, it's bad.
Adam, that's bad. It's really bad.
That's Vic's got to take a look at himself. That's and I was look. It's 2 games. Clint Hurt, very well respected D-line coach. We've talked about him 50 times since he got hired. He's got to get his guys going here. Jeremiah Washburn's, whose group was disappointing to say the least, the second half of last season. He's the spotlight's on him. There's no question. He's got to get his guys going here. It's.
I thought we might see some Jalix Hunt tonight, Adam, because he was active. He was not active in the first game. He was active in this game.
Played. He
played on special. Did he play on defense though? I know.
I didn't see him. It's funny you say that because I was trying to figure out who is 50. Who is 59?
There was
you're thinking
Booker is 58, right? You might have been confusing him with
no. 58's
Oh.
Hunt, 59's Booker.
Right.
No, what happened was I saw 59. I'm like, wait a minute, is that a linebacker? Who is 59? Like, because it's. I hate that the players are allowed to pick their numbers because we can't memorize numbers anymore like we used to. Guys in the 50s, linebackers, right, or offensive linemen. Nope, yeah. Thomas Booker is 59, and he's got good energy. But man, overall, folks, it's a long season. This is a staff that's talented on defense. They got to do a better job. They got to get their guys going here. And but I would have. Let me ask you a question. It's 2 games, and we'll find out what the tape looked like. But I would, if you had to rank your 3 most disappointing players or 2 most disappointing, who would you say on defense would be 1, 2, and 3, or 1 and 2?
Slay gave up that touchdown to London, and he kind of made it too easy for him. But granted, I'm not going to do that though, because
good game one though.
London's a good receiver, and he can put a good move when he has time, and the quarterback had time. So I'll put it on Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff did not show up. I'll put him number 1. I'll put Jordan Davis number 2. And honestly, I'm not going to go Zach Bond yet because I didn't see the tape. But for what a great opener he had, I mean, whoever was out of their run gaps, whether it was Dean, whether it was Bond, it could be everybody. I mean, when C.J. Gardner-Johnson makes the best run stop of the day,
that was a hell of a
by
play.
the way, he should have, because that was a terrible tackle attempt he made on the Mooney touchdown.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like everybody you could say something good about, but you could also say, yeah, but they also didn't do well. Jalen Hurts had some really good runs. Did not play quarterback, didn't throw the ball and find his weapons very well in that game. It was not a good overall effort by the Eagles.
Yeah, I would say, and 2 things off what you just said. I would say, again, as we started the show, both sides of the football are culprits here. Yes, the defense collapsed at the end. That was bad. That was embarrassing. They left some plays on the board. The 9 penalties. I mean, you can't. And again, you have to know that offensive linemen know that they can't run upfield. I mean, how many times does this happen?
Right.
I didn't say. I know it's not easy, but that they know what the rule is.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm disappointed in Kellen Moore / Nick Sirianni. I am. I thought that even if Saquon Barkley catches that ball and the Eagles win, I was already not really impressed with the offensive ingenuity or lack thereof in the game, or their inability to get other people open, aside from Devontae Smith. So I think we said in the pregame show, it's not just sort of a referendum game on Hurts' ability to lift everybody around him, but also on Kellen Moore. So I'm going to put them all in a pot there. Didn't do a good job.
Yeah. And again, Goddard's got to get the ball. You got to figure this out. I get they have great safeties. I get all that, but you just don't, you never go to a game saying, okay, we can't do this. Let's not even try.
Right.
It's just not coaching. I mean, you knew going into the game, you needed someone physical to be able to get open. He's the one guy. Now we'll find out, was he in the block most of the game? They were using Calcaterra as a slot tight end. We did see that. But I just, on your point, we need to see a little bit more of these coaches. Mm-hmm. Yes, they were great week 1. Week 2 could have gone way better. Now they know what life is like. This new staff without Brown, it's not good. But you can't just accept that. You got to figure it out. And as I said earlier, Marshawn Lattimore didn't even play for New Orleans, and they beat up Dallas.
Yeah,
and they handled Dallas's offense, which was surprising. And I know you've been in the Superdome, the Mercedes Superdome before. You know how loud it gets?
Let me tell you something. That's a tough place to play when the Saints are just merely average. When they're an average team, that's one of the most difficult venues to play to. When the Saints are 2-0 and scoring 40 points a game, and let me tell you, man, it's hard to write a game story. It's hard to write a game. And I believe the Eagles have not won in New Orleans since 2000.
Was that the game? Was it Sheldon Brown?
No, that was 2006. Yeah. They lost that. That was a playoff game.
Okay.
Sheldon makes the big hit on Reggie Bush, but they get run over by Deuce McAllister and Reggie Bush. He stays in the game, and they rushed for over 200 yards in that game. And that was the second time they lost to the Saints that year. They lost to them in New Orleans during the regular season as well. But that game in the playoffs was famous for Brian Westbrook catching he had a huge touchdown negated by a hold on Scott Young.
That for BYU.
Yeah. Best available Mormon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because that's how I remember it. But so we can end this thing. It's it's only game 2. Okay, they're 1-1. And by the way, did you see the records of the division on the NFC least?
Yes.
I mean, okay, it's a long season. Washington technically is in first place. It's irrelevant. Eagles are 1-1. Dallas is 1-1. New York, the Giants. The New Jersey Giants are 0-2 and awful. So it's the division's worse than we expected. It's early. Again, there are only 5 undefeated teams in the NFC. It's
hey, I'm going to give a quick kudos as we get out of here to Zach Robinson, right, the offensive coordinator.
Actually, 4. I'm sorry, 4. NFC. Good.
Got it. To Zach Robinson.
Yeah,
that's coaching. He saw in the opener that his quarterback did not take to a shotgun pistol-based offense, right? And instead of saying, we'll work on it, drill it, what do the Falcons do tonight? I mean, they come out under center, 2 tight ends, 12 personnel. They played some 13 personnel. They got the ground game going. They got the play action that Kirk Cousins did in Minnesota, and even before that in Washington so well. So good. Nobody likes to credit the opponent, but I was wondering what he was going to do, if he was going to stick with one thing and say we'll get better, or if he was going to cater to his offense to his quarterback. He did B, and that paid off dividends. So now it's time for Kellen Moore to do it the same.
I agree. The Eagles ran some tempo. They tried to go faster. Just didn't quite work like they thought it would.
Did not. All right. That is it. We've got a lot coming up this week on the Inside the Birds platform. Of course, Inside the Birds pod, Q&A, Gun on One, Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell, and, of course, a lot of great stuff for our Patreon crew as well. That's patreon.com/Inside the Birds. The Ask Greg Cosell will go on tomorrow night for our Tier 3 Patreon members. That's going to do it for the Inside the Birds post-game show. For Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. Thanks for watching. We will catch you on the next one.